That joke isn't funny anymore. Available on Amazon and everywhere. Hey guys, welcome back to the Lou Perez podcast. I'm your host, Lou Perez, and I'm very happy to be joined by my next guest. His name is Joshua Rayner, and I've been following Josh for probably a few years now. And I think my intro to Josh had to deal with working out, diet, and in particular, a fondness for ice cream. And really, while other people are trying to put down sugar and ice cream, Josh was like, "No, man, we got to hold up this this very special thing that we have as human beings." So, Josh, thanks so much for joining me, man.
Yeah, Lou, thanks for having me, man. We love our ice cream.
Yeah, before we dip into being fatties, I guess we were just talking before about I was like, "Hey, Josh, what do you do for what's your main gig?" And he described himself as being diversified. And I feel like a lot of people, definitely like in our age group, are very diversified as far as the stuff that they do, how they make a living, and that sort of thing. And we were talking about you've had various kind of stages of influencer notoriety. So maybe we can start there and dig deeper. So.
Yeah. I guess I started basically doing like the Instagram fitness influencer thing, like while I was still in college, but it wasn't really a thing quite yet. I had just started posting like pictures of my workouts because back then the only people that you would engage with on social media were people that you actually had a social familiarity with. So it was just like my friends in college. And, you post pictures of your parties and stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm going to the gym. Like, that's fun stuff to post, I guess. And this was before videos were allowed. So I would just take screenshots of my workouts and stuff. And then, yeah, basically through my 20s, I just kind of turned into like a fitness influencer of sorts. I was a personal trainer, and I had been working with this company called Caveman Coffee, which some people are pretty familiar with it. They were like one of the original sponsors for Joe Rogan's podcast before Black Rifle came along. And so I did sales and marketing for them. And depending on when you started following me, I used to have hair like down to like my
Well, yeah, I got to tell you, Josh, I'm a little disappointed because I thought I was going to see some flowing hair, especially me. I get so much shit from people who hate me about my hairline. I was like, I want to see some long hair.
Yeah, I think I'm growing it back out again. I don't know. It's kind of hard to decide because it does become troublesome. But I mean, my hair was like super duper, all down past here. I had a big beard out to here. And so I looked like a caveman. And so I kind of became the de facto mascot for Caveman Coffee for a number of years. And so I would go to all of our events and conventions and wear like a leopard print like Speedo and serve coffee to people and like make sales, like and flirt with girls and all that kind of fun stuff. So I kind of built up like a bit of like a persona around that. And then that turned into a TV show on ESPN because my following started to build up. And I guess it wasn't really playing a character. I was just being myself and I was having a good time. Producer who wanted to start their own show just found me on social media and hit me up. And then we pitched the show. We filmed like a test pilot, pitched it around, got on ESPN. We have done 4 episodes with ESPN, and we got picked up for our first full season in 2020.
Oh wow!
And then COVID happened.
Oh, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
What was the show? What was the show called?
It was called Gym Rats with 2 T's. And it was the way that it was originally pitched was diners, drive-ins, and dives, but for gyms. As gym culture became like much more popular, and all these gyms had their own like personalities and flares and designs. Right. And that's kind of where it started. But when ESPN picked it up, they were like, we don't really think there's a huge market for this. So they shifted us towards training for sports. So So well, after we filmed like our pilot, which was at this like powerlifting gym in Nashville, we started doing college sports strength conditioning programs. So then our episodes became University of Miami football, University of Florida basketball, University of Notre Dame basketball. And it was like, we're going to show you their fancy facilities. You know, the boosters give them millions of dollars for these state-of-the-art facilities. We're going to interview the coaches, the players, and we're going to take you through their workouts. Basically show you how the sausage is made, because college fan bases are this like diehard thing. Right. And when it comes to all sports, it's like, you know, you see the product on TV on the field, but you want to know kind of what gets done behind closed doors. So they would put me through like a brutal workout and torture me. And that was the show. And it was a lot of fun until COVID came along and canceled it, basically.
Yeah, my younger brother Mark, he played college football at a small college, Siena College in upstate New York, and you know he was a football player in high school, and then in college he was I believe like a lineman, and I was kind of like a little bit of a like meathead in high school and in college as far as like working out, and him being my younger brother. Even though he's so much bigger than me, and thank God he never got angry at me. I was kind of a dick to him, and I remember one day in particular, I was a dick in Bayside on the side of the Long Island Expressway. There's like this marina that you can people jog and ride their bikes and run up and stuff. And I was running like kind of the equivalent of like distance running, and I was like, oh, let's go run, and then. He was like winded after a little while, and I was like giving him shit for it. But then only later on do I realize, well, wait a minute, he's a fucking football player. He's training very specifically for, in whatever kind of running that he does. He's not running friggin' miles, he's going for, fast twitch, right from the handoff or whatever. And it's like, I would have been, I guess, a better brother had I realized that there's such a thing as specialization in sports, and you can't like expect everybody to do everything.
Yeah, football is like a 5-second sport.
Yeah,
right? It's just the 5 seconds, and so I played football in high school, and I always liked that start and stop, because I also played basketball and lacrosse, and there was definitely a huge switch off in my conditioning going one season to the next, because in lacrosse, I mean, you're running the whole length of the field back and forth over and over. Actually, my football coach would always get mad at me for losing weight in the spring because, I'm playing lacrosse. And so like, I'm just,
how are you going to keep it on? Yeah.
But to be fair, it's not like he told me not to lose weight and like give me a diet plan or anything, but yeah.
Well, when you started out, like kind of doing the influencer thing and posting your exercises, was there like a specific angle you were coming from, like a CrossFit versus, a powerlifting, or etc.?
Yeah. I mean, so I was like similar. I was like a meathead my whole life. I mean, I was 11 years old when I started going to the gym with my dad. My dad was like a 6 a.m. before work every day, but then I'd go with him on the weekends sometimes. And I always really liked working out. I played sports and I love sports, but I specifically always took to the workout part of it. I enjoyed it. I was the guy doing push-ups and sit-ups in my bedroom while watching TV. And I was always stronger than my peers. I was usually the strongest amongst all my friends. And so when we got to high school and you start lifting for football, like properly, I really took to it, and I was very strong. And so I just kind of like did that type of training. And then I got into college, and then I just started doing like meathead, bodybuilding splits kind of thing. Until one of my fraternity brothers was like, I'm doing this CrossFit thing. You like to work out, you should come with me. And I went, and I fucking hated it. It was like,
it's just murder. Like, why are you killing yourself? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I've never been an endurance person. I don't know if, I did like the 23andMe thing, and it's like, I have both genetic pairs of, you'd be an amazing sprinter and strength athlete, which means I'm a terrible endurance athlete. And I also have a deviated septum, and I have trouble breathing like very well. So, if it's like, 100 yard dash, 40 yard dash, 100 meter sprint, like I'm good. But the my mile time is just ass. That's never been a forte of mine. And so, yeah, the CrossFit, I honestly didn't really like it. And somehow I just sort of kept doing it anyways, for the last few years of college. But then after college, the CrossFit gym that I ended up at in Venice Beach had like a strongman program. If you know what strongman is, like World's Strongest Man. Mm-hmm. And, it's not just like 400-pound guys. Like you can compete if you're 200 pounds or 175 pounds or 150 pounds. And so I basically spent all that time that I was in a CrossFit gym, like doing strongman, which is basically just like a heavier, shorter CrossFit in many ways. But yeah, I was like in the CrossFit world of social media, like all my friends and sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, connections and everything was just kind of like in that vein. I was really in the paleo diet, that kind of stuff. And so like the branding of it, so to speak, I wasn't like, I would say I was an influencer just because it's the best way to explain it, but I wasn't like hawking a bunch of stuff. I wasn't taking advantage of it monetarily. I mean, I probably should have, but I was just having fun and like posting what I was, just like on Twitter. It's just like, this is fun. So
yeah,
it's like that.
Well, the thing about, being like an influencer when it comes to exercise is that you're more accountable because the pictures are there of you, whereas you have a lot of people who are kind of like, traveling influencers and stuff, and they could be taking these pictures, but they could be, who knows? I mean, they could be absolutely miserable in their real life and not want to be where they are. But meanwhile, if you're working out, it's like, okay, this dude obviously has been working out or he hasn't been working out. It's like, what is he trying to sell me here?
To be fair, a lot of fitness influencers are miserable.
Well, I meant fit, at least look,
but you actually like, you can't really fake it. I mean, now with like, AI and stuff, who knows? But like the whole, basically like no one really cares what you're talking about. I mean, people do, but like if you don't look the part, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Which is why like you may or may not have noticed, it's not as popular anymore, but on Twitter, people get in an argument, and especially if it has anything remotely to do with fitness, someone just responds with like, well, post your physique, what are you coming to the table with here?
That was me the other day, not necessarily post your physique, but there was some argument about, I guess, school lunches or whatever, whatever's going on, and with RFK Jr., the Maha stuff, which I know I wanted to talk to you about, changing school lunches. And there was this woman who was basically that I was, arguing with, and it came down to, I guess, an argument over like calories. And what I basically, said to her is like, look, I have different caloric needs than my wife does. So, and it's the same thing with kids. Like some kids are going to need more calories than other kids. And, we ended up getting into this thing. She's like, well, I doubt that you eat, all of your calories for lunch or whatever. And then I manage and I keep track of everything I eat and I weigh it and I have an app. So I told her exactly what I had for breakfast, and it was like almost 1,400 calories and like, I think it was like over like 100 grams of protein, like whatever the macro. I didn't get into like the macros specifically. And then I just realized like, wait a minute, I'm having this argument with this woman who is anonymous, and her thumbnail is literally bagels with cream cheese. And it's like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm not helping anybody by having this argument.
Yeah. People get, because fitness is one thing if you're talking about the workout aspect, but diet and nutrition is the thing more than anything. It's a reason why like every religion, every cult, even political, you kind of see like there's a political divide over what foods people are into, because it's like it's signaling like what tribe you're with. But food is so primal that every single person eats, right? Like it's way more, because people work out, but not everyone works out, and a lot of people don't really even care. They just do it whatever they need to do. But I always say that there is no greater way to actually affect your reality than choosing what you eat. Like there's nothing that gives you such immediate feedback.
Yeah.
It is kind of mind blowing that you actually have this thing that you do every single day that affects your being. There's really nothing more than eating that does that. And so people have really strong opinions on food, and everyone thinks that their opinion is extremely, extremely valid. Because they're like, well, I eat, so I'm an expert on food because I eat. And look, I mean, I'm not the kind of person who thinks like, well, only doctors. I usually don't agree with what doctors say to eat in the first place. But there's very clearly people who kind of understand what's happening more than others. And not just that, but people who have whatever it is that they are doing is working to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah. I have, so my birthday's coming up on the 26th. I'm going to be 43. And then the next day I'm having my annual physical with my doctor. So, ultimately, I'm going to have my blood work and I'm hoping that, the diet, the way that I've been eating for, a little bit over a year has been beneficial. I think it has. I mean, I feel much better. My weight is where, I want it to be, and anxiety and stress, and I'm handling all that stuff a lot better thanks to the way that I've been eating, and having that control over it, I think is really, really important. And so, and something else like, so I yesterday I just downloaded this app. I think it's Seed Oil Scout or something like that. I don't know if you've heard.
There's a number of these apps to find restaurants that don't use seed oils.
Yeah. And, I haven't gotten into, the studies and stuff like that. I mean, what I've basically tried to do is just simplify the way that I'm eating. So I'm like, okay, I'll do olive oil, avocado oil, and butter. And that's, what I cook with, that's what I eat. And something that I noticed, one, like when I've simplified the stuff that I eat, I don't, eat like a lot of sauces and stuff. I like taste more of just what's there. Like eggs taste different, just plain old eggs, than they used to, like back in the day. And the same thing with like steak and all that. And the one downside though is that when I do go out to eat, there's like this like last like aftertaste in my mouth where I'm like, they use some kind of oil that I don't use anymore. And then ultimately, if I'm on the toilet, however many minutes afterwards. So it's sort of like eating clean kind of fucks you up in a way, because it's like, oh man, I'm like, anytime I go somewhere, I feel like I'm being poisoned.
So I usually am wary of my audience when I say this. I'm sure yours is totally fine. Mm-hmm. But there's this thing I like to, I just like to refer back to it because it sort of brings back the reality of it, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to diet, I think a big part of whether food is healthy or not can actually be, it's not the entire picture, but can be simplified as whether or not it digests well. Because it can actually be very healthy, but if it doesn't digest well for you, it's causing negative health effects. And it's basically it's just this expression I came up with. This is the butthole never lies.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So whenever someone is like, should I do this? And it's like, okay, well, if it's not like battery acid, we've like established that it's like an actual food. I always say, try it and see what happens. And there's certain foods that, you go, oh man, that really gave me a rough time, or that didn't feel good. And that's great feedback. That's teaching you something. But it's interesting that you brought up the restaurant thing, because man, it's so hard to find good food. I feel like it didn't used to be like this, like 10, 20 years ago. Like used to go out to eat all the time and enjoyed food.
Yeah.
And I think because maybe we're health conscious and we do these things with our food. And so we've kind of changed the way that our body responds to quote unquote, like, the normal food or more common food, as far as what's more processed and more available in restaurants. But like, even like, my mom, she just says, no restaurants are good anymore. Something's wrong with them. And I find like I'll go to a restaurant and it just feels like the food doesn't actually taste like anything. Either the ingredients are poor or, they don't salt it enough, which is weird because you would think normally restaurants would probably oversalt their food just to make it taste like something. But it's very hard to find good food out and about. And so on the bright side, that leads to people probably cooking more, and which means you're saving money and you're going to be eating healthier food. If you make the right choices, you have more control over your food. But it's the like I said, before, like the immediate feedback with what you eat is such an incredible thing that I've felt like I can literally change who I am based on how I feel like eating at any given time. And the more that I have started to understand cravings and what different foods do, then you kind of really start to feel like you basically have like a toolbox, as opposed to, the thing is, if you follow a diet, most diets as they've been known for the last 30, 40 years have been eat this, don't eat that, which means if it's a don't, you just don't touch it. And if it is, then there's just no rules. You could just eat whatever you want that falls into like the green list, which is a pretty terrible way of approaching food, in the sense that like you're still not understanding anything about what it's doing for you. And like it doesn't mean just because this food is like allowed, you just can eat like unlimited amounts of it. It's very weird. So you see that with like vegan or carnivores, especially because they're like, oh, you can't eat these foods. And so because all of these foods are vegan or they are carnivore, then you can make the most like insane concoction. Like the keto people, the kind of like things that they would come up with to satisfy their sugar cravings, like, dude, just have some sugar. You'll be fine. But it's like you're basically like an insane. I've been there. I've done a little bit of everything, and I've never experienced one night when I was doing carnivore. I will say that carnivore made me feel amazing because it like fixed my digestion in a way that I really have never experienced otherwise. Talking about like the butthole never lies, the way that like my gut felt. It was this really like oddly peaceful state that I felt on carnivore, because it was like, because I was so strict with my food, I was just eating steaks and ground meat. Nothing was messing with me. And I just felt like, oh, I can like actually just go about my life now, instead of feeling like kind of always somewhat off based on what I'd eaten. But the thing is, if you do a no carb diet, your body is going to start to really, really crave carbs. And so one day I kind of just like broke down and I like rated everything in my pantry. I ended up eating like over 8,000 calories. I added it all up after the fact. Like I ate like a whole bag of just like raw almonds because they had traces of carbohydrates in them. I ate like 2 whole tubs of Greek yogurt. I found every last piece of chocolate I had in my house. And I did all of that, and it wasn't enough. And at the time, I lived like a 5-minute walk from a Whole Foods. I went to Whole Foods, and I ate a whole like log of raw cookie dough. And I just kind of blacked out.
Were you arrested? Were you in a fugue state?
I couldn't stop. Yeah. It's insane that like your body actually needs carbohydrate. Like it needs it. And I understand that certain people get results with these other diets, but there's what you can get away with or what you need to do in some very like unique circumstance. And there's also just like how your body is designed to work. And so, after so many months of carnivore where I was already like very lean previously, like it made it, I got a little bit leaner, I lost a little bit of weight. My stomach got way flatter because of the digestive stuff. And where I had been like a weigh and measure your macros for like a decade kind of guy before that, I just ate like when I wanted, and it was like effortless. I always hope it was just like effortless, which was cool. But I just like my performance in the gym just tanked without carbs. I just started to feel off. And so then I started doing like raw goat milk and honey, and I started to feel way better. And I did that for a few months. And I still feel like I needed more. So then I just added in like fruit and starches, and basically ended up in like a essentially a normal diet again.
Normal. I was about to say, like, you just became normal.
Yeah, not just eating food, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I was training like 2-3 times a day sometimes. Like I was doing like jujitsu and bodybuilding and strongman, and I just needed the carbs. Right. And then all of a sudden, I just kind of started to feel a lot better. But it was like I'm trading how I feel like energetically to then like how I'm feeling like digestively, and so it's this like. I hate how often this word gets used, but it's just like this like journey of like figuring out like what you need to eat. And I'm always experimenting with other kinds of foods. Yeah.
The whole idea that there is like a, one size fits all. I mean, just like what you said, there are, people, I mean, I love cottage cheese and Kerrygold cheddar reserve. And, I love that, but I know there are a lot of people that they could not handle that, whatsoever, like their bodies just aren't built for it. I had a friend of mine on, Joe Terwilliger, who he's a professor at Columbia. He does a lot of work with genetics, in particular, like kind of isolated ethnicities. So one of the big studies that he did was on North Koreans. So like North Koreans in North Korea, and like North Koreans, I think, I forget where they were exactly, maybe in a, I don't know if they were in a part of China or Mongolia or something like that, but like kind of comparing, these, they're the same people as far as like genetics go. How do they differentiate, with, after you take into account like, what they're eating in these new places and stuff. And, one of the things that he was telling me about China was that a little while back, China started adopting more of kind of like a Western diet, which included, milk, and kind of, it was now kind of like the duty of the Chinese to drink milk because milk is good for you. But yet so many of the Chinese are lactose intolerant, so here they are, they're being kind of forced to drink milk that's making them feel like garbage, and it's sort of like, rather than just answering and just saying, oh no, we're different, we can't handle milk, forget it. I have no idea what the plumbing system is like in China, but I can't imagine it'd be very good if everyone's forcing milk down themselves,
Yeah, there definitely is like a genetic variation, I think, and but then there's also like the there's this kind of idea of this is just the way that you are, and there's nothing you can do about it, and there's just this is how people are for now, kind of a way of looking. And so one of my like probably first like really big like viral tweets, I probably did like the first raw milk thread like 3 years ago.
Okay. I think I remember that. Yeah. I think that might've been one of my intros to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, like, I mean, it's been done a million times, but not to be like a hipster or anything, but I'm pretty sure I was one of the first to like just explain it at least.
Yeah.
And because I mean, like, I love milk, and I've been drinking raw milk for 12 years now. And I got into it just because I was like a weird fitness person into health. But what I've noticed is a lot of people, regardless of their ethnicity, have trouble digesting milk. Like plenty of European people, plenty of Caucasian people who come from populations that drink milk have some, they're lactose intolerant, or they have some kind of allergy, or they have some issue with milk consumption. And it usually, like, it often, at least for those people who it's like, okay, you can pretty solidly confirm that like the genetics are there, is that there's just some like health issue at play, or there's an issue with the milk. And so the state of your digestive system and your hormonal production can very much affect like what kind of enzymes your body makes, how vulnerable your digestive system is. And so many people say, I was lactose intolerant my whole life, and then I started drinking raw milk, and then it's fine. I was kind of like a similar person. I mean, I always ate ice cream, I always ate pizza, but if I drank like milk, just the milk that was whatever, I just never had a good time. But I think it's a lot more like complex than that. And it like comes down to like what our food system even is, because to this day, if I go to the store and I buy raw milk, I buy cow milk, I buy goat milk, I buy sheep milk, whatever it is, no problem. I can go to the store and buy pasteurized goat milk, no problem. I can go to the store and I can buy pasteurized cow milk, whole milk, and no problem. But if I get like the low fat or skim milk, a lot of people don't realize that like the government mandates that they fortify it with vitamin A and vitamin D if they take the fat out. And then I have like extreme digestive distress.
Oh, wow.
And so I think for many people, it's literally just the chemicals in the supplemental vitamins that they add. They're usually, I believe that the vitamin A and D are in the substance called like propylene glycol, which is a very toxic substance. But if I have that, like it just wrecks me. And so I'm like, maybe my problem was just my parents always bought like low fat milk, and that's what was causing me problems. And I actually wasn't lactose intolerant at all, I don't know. But a lot of people, sometimes it's the homogenation issue. It's not the lactose. It's not the pasteurization. It's the homogenization. And that's just basically them like shrinking the fat cells. And then the smaller fat cells can like get through the lining of your intestines. And so I always tell people, like, if you want to drink milk, or it just would make your life a lot easier. I mean, milk's an incredible food. Like I'll tout the benefits of milk to the end of time. It's probably one of the reasons why, like, all of like, the Indo-European people is basically like all of civilization, right? Like all these people had dairy in some regard, whether they were milk drinkers or cheese eaters or yogurt or butter or ghee or something. It's this vital part of nutrition for like the entire like developed world. And I don't think like human civilization would even like exist really the way we know it without dairy. It's like extremely important to I feel like our development. So I always tell people, like, try to figure out a way to get milk and dairy into your diet some way that you can, because it's just like, it's unmatched. Nutritionally, if you just think about like this food was designed to be the sole food source for a growing animal, it's a very, very nutritionally dense food. And so you just kind of have to like experiment. Like if you can get raw milk, some people can't access it, it's too expensive. Try to buy, low pasteurized or non-homogenized, or get the A2 protein or whatever it is. But I will say goat milk seems to be much better tolerated by most people. And I like goat milk. I usually just drink goat milk.
When I was in, I was staying in Echo Park a lot when I was going back and forth between New York and LA. And there was a little shop there that sold raw milk. And it was absolutely delicious. Like it just, because I had given up like drinking milk, proper, whatever, probably when I was a kid. So then drinking this thing, I was like, wow, this tastes like nothing I've ever had before. It's amazing. But I have to admit, I got scared off of it because I read about botulism. And I was like, all right, as tasty as this is, I think I'm going to be a little bit of a pussy and not risk it. So I haven't had, raw milk in quite some time. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know anyone who's had any issues from raw milk. Especially, California is interesting because we have like I think it's most legal in California than any other state. I mean, I can literally go to the store and just buy it, but it's very specific on which brands are allowed. There's only 2 or 3 brands available through all of California in the stores. So, but I mean, they get recalled, just like any food gets recalled, but I mean, whenever there's an E. coli outbreak, it's always on lettuce, and people are, I'm too scared to eat a salad now. And so I don't know, it's like you can't, for me, it's the benefits, outweigh any sort of risk. I mean, I love milk, and raw milk is just so good. But I mean, look, if you don't want to drink raw milk, you can drink pasteurized milk, I guess.
Right.
For me, it's just like, in the kind of political sense, it's very important, I think, for like, I don't know, food freedom, because you would not believe. So I was a farmer for a number of years. COVID happened. I lost. Depending on when we come up on Twitter, you might have missed
I wish for every single like part of your life that you're explaining, like you put on a different hat. So now you're gonna put on your farmer's hat.
Yeah, I do have that hat somewhere. Actually, it's funny. Like I have some of my friends on Twitter. They have saved every one of my different profile pictures, and they create dialogues between different versions of me. And so in that one, I have like, it's in the snow. It was New Year's Day 3 years ago. And it was the first snow of the season. And it's me bringing in all the cows to milk in the morning. And it's snowing everywhere. And I have a big bushy beard and all the snow on my beard. And I have my little leather hat.
How do you get into that? Yeah. But how'd you, where do you get the cow? I mean, is it like your studio apartment in LA?
So, I was living in Venice Beach and I was doing the fitness thing and the TV show. COVID happens, that all gets shut down. And so then I'm just like, what do I do? But then COVID was an insane time. Like people just I feel like people just kind of brush off like how crazy it was. Yeah. Like, cause it's so hard to put yourself back in that state when, I mean, look, the idea that the world just stopped is kind of wild. And I always tell people, I mean, that first week or two in LA, there was no traffic.
Yeah.
It felt like it felt like a ghost town, but it was so nice. You're like, man, if we just deported all these people.
Well, yeah, I remember because it was a similar thing in New York. I remember my niece was talking about how great it was, if there was no traffic, and I agreed with her. And I'm like, yeah, but look how many millions of people had to die, for it's you start weighing things like, all right, maybe, so
yeah,
it was worth it.
So yeah, I lost the gig with the TV show. And then, so I'm just like, well, first off, what's going on in the world right now? What do I do? Because, then it became a concern, are you going to be able to find food in the stores?
Yeah.
Because there was at the beginning, there were shortages everywhere. People were panic buying everything. So people would go in the store and then buy everything and stock it up. So you'd go to the grocery store and they wouldn't have meat. And then, I got on one of those butcher box things. And I mean, I just got on that one before they had a long waiting list. And so I was like, shit, man, this might just be the world now. And so do I need some kind of food, massive food security kind of lifestyle? And so I just kind of impulsively left. I born and raised in the LA area and just I need to go change my entire life. And so I ended up in Colorado working on a farm.
Wow.
I just I kind of just packed up my shit and left town.
What's the what's the interview process like for that? And then also what do you wage wise, what are you pulling down? Are you living on the farm as well? Is it housing?
I ended up doing a couple different, the first farm that I ended up at, they didn't really pay, but they normally did it as a housing, a woofing thing. So you live there for free and, you get to eat food. But you don't get paid. And so my first farm gig thing, I just literally just wasn't getting paid at all. But in my head, it's I need to do this to learn how to farm because I have to farm because the world is ending and I'm not going to have food if I don't do this otherwise. And so I did that for a couple months. My son was actually born at that time, which was, kind of through things okay, well, I can't just be screwing around on a farm and support a family. And so I was able to so the reason how I got that one was I literally just started calling farms in town and saying do you have any job openings. Like I've never been on a farm before. Like I want to learn how to farm. And a lot of people are like, oh, we don't hire anyone. We're just family, or we don't have any openings, or something. And this guy was like, sure, you come on by. I was able to then use that experience to leverage that into like a livestock manager position at another farm.
Oh, wow.
Which I mean, it paid like $18 an hour, which is not a lot of money. It's certainly not in like a very expensive cost of living area.
Josh, can I just say something? Now I'm imagining like you take that first job, the guy's like, this is a great idea. Here's this kid, coming from California. He's going to learn how to farm. And then he just comes out to the barn and you have sucked the cow dry.
Well, look, I mean, like one of the very first things I did on like my first day, I milked a cow, was I'm like, I want the milk.
Yeah.
Milk like straight from the teat. Yeah. So it took a while. Like, it takes a bit to figure out how to actually get, the milk to come out of the teats. And then you're like, okay, now I'm squirting it in my mouth, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah. And so then I did that I ended up with this other farm job, which actually paid. And then I used that to get another farm job. But there's no money to be made doing that. You're making nothing. And so I had to pick up, like, I started doing personal training again, which I hadn't done in a long time. Started picking up little odd jobs on the side there just to like make ends meet. But for like 2 years, I basically kind of got to live like this fun, really hardworking, but like fun lifestyle where I was, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day and milking cows in freezing cold temperature and, slaughtering animals and collecting eggs and driving a tractor. And, I mean, a lot of those like skills that I learned are invaluable. I mean, at the end, I just kind of ended up being like a ranch butcher because I needed more time to work other jobs that paid better. But I still liked doing it, and I wanted access to like the most amazing raw milk and fresh meat. Like a lot of people don't realize, I was talking about like our whole food system, like milk is fortified with all these foreign substances, and you'd be surprised. Like people have done independent testing and realize that they add other fillers and things that aren't on the label. Like that's one of the really important things that RFK does is identify, because right now there's basically a threshold. If there's not enough of something in a food, they don't have to list it.
Wow.
So lots of foods have fillers and ingredients that aren't on the label. So when you're trying to just buy them as a consumer, you go, oh, this looks good. And you don't realize what they add in there. But so all of the meat that is sold in stores legally has to be processed by a USDA licensed butcher. So the farm that I was working on, we were private. We didn't sell to the public. So all the farms that I was on, we just sold to basically what are called PMAs, private membership association, which means you basically sign like a contract with the farm that you're not a public purchaser. You basically belong to the farm. The farm belongs to you. Kind of like you're a part owner. They kind of have these various like share legal kind of loopholes to get through it. And so I was the butcher, and there was no, what do you call it? There was no like stamp of approval from some food inspector kind of a thing. But, the people basically signed their rights away. It's like, look, you want this supernatural food. You have to understand that we don't like go through the normal channels. And so you are willing to take that risk with the raw milk, with the meat. So the meat that's in the stores is sprayed with citric acid as like a preservative to prevent any type of bacterial growth. And what's crazy is that the citric acid is like this GMO black mold that they harvest citric acid. Most people hear citric acid and they're like,
orange juice. Yeah, lemon juice.
Yeah. No, it's black mold. This is black mold derived substance that is sprayed on your meat. So if you've ever bought meat from a store, they have to spray that on there to be legally sold by the USDA.
Wow.
Yeah.
My family has a butcher shop.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So did you grow up like doing that kind of stuff?
Well, no, I never. We never did like a slaughterhouse or anything like that. But I grew up, I shit you not, like eating filet mignon multiple times a week, where I thought it was just normal, or even to the point now, and I was like, in my 40s, when I go to like a butcher or a supermarket and I see how much meat costs, I'm like, holy shit. Like I was, fine dining, for such a long time. And, with the additives and stuff, my wife likes, oat milk. And, we ordered like a bunch of oat milk from, I guess, like Kirkland, Costco. And then it comes, and then, you think like, oh, oat milk, it's oats and water. I mean, what else could possibly be in this? And then the other day, she looks at the back and she's like, what the fuck is in there? Like, why? Like, they're putting all this other shit in, and that's, like you said, like, that's the stuff that's labeled, the stuff that's in these unnecessary things.
I mean, I don't know about the other brands, but in Oatly, which is like the biggest oat milk company in the world, they put canola oil in their oat milk.
Like, yeah.
They're just drinking seed oils. It's great.
Yeah, and it is one of it's one of those things. Like I hear, like with the seed oil stuff in particular, I've heard a lot of people say, well, they're okay in moderation. Well, it's really hard to have something in moderation when it's in everything you're freaking eating, So
every time you eat out, every single restaurant cooks in canola. Like even the fanciest 3-star Michelin restaurants, the reason why they use it is because it's such a neutral flavor and it's just very easy to cook with.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, look, like you can drive yourself crazy. It's like, look, I eat out sometimes, it's fine, but like you make these decisions 90% of the time. All the stuff, like the way I kind of put it too, is like the stuff that I buy to keep in the house, I'm like super particular about what it is. Like I only try to buy grass-fed meat and I try to buy really nice milk. And, I mean, like, okay, if you go to get cheese, the vast majority of cheese is made with, again, talking about this like black mold derived substance, is like this GMO enzyme. Cheese was traditionally made with animal rennet, right? So basically the substance that comes from a calf's stomach is what turns cheese into cheese. It creates the like the curdling process and the bacterial, right, like creation. But what's funny is a lot of this comes from vegetarians and even
I've seen a lot of vegetable rennet. Yeah.
Like the Hindu lobby is actually massive. That one of the reasons. So we used to have beef tallow in McDonald's French fries, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now the switch from beef tallow to soybean oil and seed oils was primarily used as like a health thing because they were trying to tell us that seed oils were healthier for heart stuff. But they actually still use this like beef essence, whatever that means, in the fries to still make them taste similar. But then like the Hindu lobby made them remove that beef stuff because it was still beef in the fries. But anyways, so our cheese, if you go to buy cheese from the store, just about any brand you ever look at, it'll list the ingredients and it'll say, cheese or cultures and cream or pasteurized milk or whatever. And you'll see salt, and then you'll either see enzymes or vegetable rennet. Enzymes and vegetable rennet are this like GMO concoction that is made to like replicate the animal rennet that's, traditionally in the calf's stomach. And so there's another like crap ingredient that can cause massive health issues and issues. But it's like, look, it's first off, it's really damn hard to find cheese that doesn't even have that. I do my best when I go out to buy cheese. But if you're like, oh, let's have like a taco night or something, you're not going to find a jack cheese that doesn't have the vegetable rennet. It just, they don't make it. So you're like, oh, okay, like once in a while, or like, look, I go to In-N-Out, I crush In-N-Out, and I'm like, I don't know where the bun came from.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Meat's probably fine. It's not grass fed, but it's meat. The cheese is American cheese. It's garbage, whatever. Like, it's whatever. It's like, I'm not going to be the kind of person. Some people want to be like that. I'm kind of like this weird place where I'm like hyper particular and anal about the food quality, about the vast majority of my food. And then it's also like, but also like whatever sometimes. Like there's just too much to worry about in life. You make the right decisions. And depending on like, look, some individuals, their health is so bad that they have to be so particular. And I totally, acknowledge that and empathize with that. And some people, their health is so good that they're just like, dude, I just live off of, gas station burritos and cocaine and I'm fine. I'm like, great. Like, oh man. Like,
yeah.
If I could do that, I'd probably do it too. So I get it.
Yeah. John Danaher, one of Renzo Gracie's black belts and this like, legendary Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach. He coaches like, Gordon Ryan and I believe George St. Pierre and just all these people. And I was watching an interview and that came up and he said, well, when it comes to like diet, with like these, athletes like that, like George St. Pierre was fighting in the UFC and he was eating like Subway. And he's like, the I don't know, gains from like those star athletes, changing their diets. It's like none, but we're not all star athletes. We're not burning 5,000 calories a day,
Well, you have to just keep in mind that, yes, there's the burning the calorie thing. Like they're very active. If someone is a star athlete, they are like peak physical specimen, not just genetic, the whole thing. They're a freak, right? But what that basically means is they're extremely resilient. And so you don't want to do what they're doing, but it's also like actually think about what it means that they can quote unquote get away with it. It means that their system works so well and is so resilient that like they can get beat up. They can get all, whether they're doing MMA and they're getting, literally beat up, they're doing football, they're getting tackled, they're doing all this stuff, all this training, they tear their ACLs, get reconstructive surgery, and are still absolute freak specimens. This is basically like, as far as like physicality, like the peak of human expression. And so, yeah, I mean, you're really talking about like minimal differences, if that, because like people don't realize the benefits, and this, sounds insane, but like the benefits of like junk food, right? The benefits of junk food is that you can eat a lot of it very easily.
So,
and
very,
for some, if you think about what is your kind of hurdle to success or like a better state, each person has like kind of a different bottleneck. And so for some people, it's like the biggest issue between me and feeling better and performing better and looking better and everything is the state of my digestion. I have to be super particular about my food. If something digests wrong, it ruins my whole existence. And some people are like, my biggest issue is I can't get in enough food. My digestion is totally fine, but I am demanding so much of my body, not just physically, it could be mentally, some people just have really high metabolisms, and that's a good thing. And if it's in the sense that it's a good functioning metabolism, and they go, I have issues if I don't eat enough food because my body is capable of doing so much. Like the fuel required for a Lamborghini is different than like a Toyota Corolla, right? And so it's more fragile in that sense, but it's also like, man, you can really make that thing go. And so do you know DK Metcalf, the receiver in the NFL?
No.
Okay. DK Metcalf he was on the Seahawks for a while. I stopped watching sports a number of years ago, so I don't know where he is now, but he's like the most freak specimen you've ever seen. He's one of those like, probably like 6'2", 6'3" receivers, but he's built like a linebacker, no body fat, tons of muscle. And honestly, like I am not doing what he's doing, but I have somehow, a lot of people have kind of ended up recreating this diet. So this is probably the point where I'm going to try to give the most advice in this.
Yeah, let's go for it. I'm taking notes.
Yeah. So like I have seen incredible benefits from the carnivore diet, but I've also seen the negative effects. While I've never been vegan, because I've never for 1 second believed that veganism was like truth, I have done like a juice cleanse for like a couple of weeks. I did it like after college. I was like, man, I just did a whole bunch of terrible stuff to myself in college. I need to get this in the system. Where I just drank like juice for 2 weeks. And I have done like very low carb, very high carb. And I have noticed how all these different kind of things work out when they're done in this isolation, when they're done in combination, when they're done for stretches of time. And so I just had a tweet about this a couple days ago, but it was like a Paul Saladino is probably the closest and like the main, as far as like, I mean, he's pretty mainstream at this point. As far as like approaching what I think constructs like a good diet. And if you take like, you know, he's kind of like combining fruit and meat, right? He calls it animal based. It's just marketing. But like I was carnivore and then I ran into all these problems. So now I just eat food, but I need to still like market it. So make a bunch of money. So I'm going to do this thing where I eat meat and I eat fruit and I have dairy, and you're basically back to like eating normal food. But if you select for like, keeping out the vegetables because a lot of people, vegetables cause intestinal distress. You keep starch. Starch is very individual. Some people respond very poorly to starch, depending on the starch. Some people digest it badly. You basically kind of come to this like fruitarian plus carnivore thing. And where someone like Paul seems to like combine it like throughout the day, where it's like he's eating fruit and meat for breakfast and fruit and meat for lunch and fruit and meat for dinner. Myself and a lot of other people, my friends online who are into like Peat stuff, have kind of come into this like separation of the food throughout the day, which is interesting because like from my like meathead days, there was this thing called carb backloading, which was, you know, from traditional performance sports, you would eat a bunch of carbs before a marathon or right. So you're kind of front loading your carbs. So this was like you lived keto and then you ate all your carbs for dinner. This is kind of like the flip side, which is like you live like a fruitarian and then you eat like a carnivore at night. And what this can really do is one of the major issues as far as like weight gain and weight loss comes with like combining carbs and fat. It doesn't mean that you can't. Some people lose tons of weight while combining carbs and fat. Some people are totally fine with it. But some people's metabolisms are so screwed up that it can really help to separate the two. And while I've seen great benefit from like weighing and measuring all my food, like you talked about doing, I'm kind of trying to find something more that's like, I don't want to have to think about that. Yeah. How can I just like follow my cravings and eat to like my heart's desire, but make good food choices and then still get the results that I want. And so, you know, if you eat sugar in isolation, it's like impossible to gain fat. It's very, very hard for the body to put on fat when you just eat sugar. And so what we've kind of been coming up with doing is like you eat fruit, you drink juice, you have coffee with sugar. You can make like homemade marshmallows or Jello, you know, so you're combining gelatin with sugar. I mean, I'm even doing, you know, instead of coffee with sugar, I actually just prefer to drink Coca-Cola. And people are like, you're a healthy person and you like Coca-Cola. And I was like, man, I think there's something magical to Coca-Cola, man. I don't know.
It's delicious.
I love it.
It's tough for me to choose between the fountain Coca-Cola or the glass bottle Coca-Cola. Like there's just some, I don't know which one is better.
Fountain feels like special in a very unique way. It's really hard to beat like a fountain Coke. But you know, if I eat this way, where I basically just eat foods that have sugar in them, fruit, juice, coffee with sugar, soda, yeah, I mean, I threw marshmallows and like Jello in there, like if you make it homemade, because the gelatin's really good for metabolism too. And then you take all that and like, look, you can do that as like healthy with clean options as you want. People keep saying like, wow, I have so much energy throughout the day. The sugar makes me feel like mental clarity. I can get my work done. I want to like get up and out of the house. I want to go for a walk. I want to go outside. And then you come down and you like feast. You know, you have like a big steak. You can do vegetables on the side. You know, whatever kind of works with your body. But you know, for me, that makes way more sense than like, imagine like, you know, eating like steak and eggs all day long kind of just doesn't really feel like, you know, you don't want to like go out and like do a bunch of stuff.
Well, also like, you know, I'm at the point where, you know, like Instagram, you know, they know they have my algorithm and they keep sending me the same shit. And if you're on a carnivore diet, every single thing that you post has a steak in it, has eggs. Maybe there's an avocado in it, and it's just like
It's
thousands and thousands of people just just putting the same shit on like a wood, with a wooden plate,
And look, again, like the crave, like I've never felt anything that like I got to satisfy all my cravings in such a unique, just like so fully before. It really does seem like, I mean, I've been talking about this a lot. I'll talk more about it. There's a guy on Twitter named Anabology who has like a website, and his version is called the honey diet. There's another guy who calls it fruit till noon. There's a lot of us are just coming up with this because it just seems to really work.
Yeah.
Like there's this incredible, because one of the downsides with a carnivore diet is, look, if your body's having these cravings for carbs, that's going to cause it's going to make you not feel good, because if you're having the cravings, thinking of, I can resist the cravings, it's like you're just really putting your body through all this unneeded stress. And your body is going to break itself down to create the glucose for your system. And so people can lose weight, but their metabolism slows down and they can start running into other issues. And so this is incredible because it actually increases your metabolism, increases your metabolic rate. And I feel like I get to eat everything for the most part. Like I will, maybe on the weekend, like maybe after this interview is over, I'm going to go for a walk down to the beach and grab like an acai bowl. I'll have some fruit, I'll have some coffee, whatever. And then, then for dinner, I'll eat like a big steak or whatever, so then you can also like quote unquote cheat or just be more lax with it. But the structure seems to work really well. And so DK Metcalf, this football player, basically he just eats candy all day.
What?
He just eats candy. Like, you go to the convenience store and just buy like bags of candy. And this guy's eating like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of grams of sugar through just candy. And he has coffee. And then he just goes home and eats dinner, like at the end of the day.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And so like, I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing that, but like, it's probably oddly enough, not that bad. The negative effects would be he's not getting in the right nutrients. Like there's no nutrition in the candy. Mm-hmm. But if you make homemade candy that you use like fruit and fruit juice, which has all of the vitamins and minerals in it, and you just add sugar to it and create all the combinations you want. There's an app called the Chronometer. A lot of people use MyFitnessPal to track their macros. Chronometer is really good about tracking all the little individual vitamins and minerals. And you can basically look at a diet and go, oh man, like I have hit all of my nutritional requirements. And that's like a good way to make sure that you're not leaving any of these like massive.
You look at it and you're like, oh man, I could eat 3 more bags of Sour Patch Kids right now. I could get that in my system.
Yeah. There might not be any vitamins in there. Yeah. But I mean, I kind of came to this a number of years ago, before Carnivore, before any of the other stuff, where the idea of like eating based on what you're going to be doing with your time, like what you're going to do after you're done eating, as opposed to just like eating because you need to get food in. And it's like, look, if I told you that you're going to go roll for an hour on a jiu-jitsu mat, would you rather have a 32-ounce ribeye or an acai bowl? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And so if you think about your day as a period of activity, and look, if you are a kind of person and you're going to have a midday nap, then maybe it's okay to go eat like a heftier lunch, go eat a steak or something, go eat some with meat in it. But I prefer to if you are going to get your protein during the day, do it with dairy, do it with eggs, do it with something lighter. It seems to energetically kind of align with what are you doing with your time? Nighttime is for rest and digest. And now I want this big hearty meal. If it's wintertime and it's raining, I might want a soup or something. And in the summer, I might want to eat something lighter, like fish tacos or something.
Right.
But splitting it up in the day like this just seems to be this incredible thing that really improves energy like crazy. And you just imagine you just split your day in half. You can make it at noon, you can make it at 3-4 p.m., whatever works with you, but fruitarian, carnivore. And it's oh man, I get to kind of eat all the things that I want.
Yeah.
And I've noticed with dairy, you can kind of fit that into the fruit side, or you can actually fit it in with the dinner meat side and kind of just go either way. But if you eat sugar by itself, it's like impossible to gain fat during that time. Like there was a guy in like, I think it was the 70s who did this diet. His name was Walter Kempner, and he is called the rice diet. And he had all these patients who were like diabetic and super overweight, and just only allowed them to eat sugar, fruit, and white rice. And they all lost like hundreds of pounds, and all their blood sugar levels normalized. They were no longer diabetic. It's crazy that you can like cure diabetes with a no carb diet and an all carb diet.
Wow.
There's for more informative stuff. There was this woman. I don't really think she's very active anymore. Her name is Denise Minger. She had a blog that was, I believe it was called Raw Food SOS. And then she just changed it to like Denise Minger blog or something. But she has like this incredible blog post called like In Defense of Low Fat. And it was basically talking about how there's like a nutritional swampland. You either see amazing health benefits and fat loss in a very high carb, low fat diet, or a very high fat, low carb diet. And everything in between tends to like be this like swampland that causes problems. And so healthy people seem to be able to get away with it just fine. I mean, I think it's totally fine to eat a mixed diet and combine fats and carbs. But if you're not in a healthy place, or you're trying to really like lose a bunch of weight, one of the best ways to like really do that is to go to one of these extremes. And in my opinion, the high carb one is much better for your metabolism. And then you can still get in the fats in. I kind of like to do it like, imagine like a cheat meal. And instead of carnivore, where I would eat carnivore and then like pig out a bunch of carbs like once every so many weeks, imagine you're kind of more of like a high carb, lower fat person. But then like, you know what? I'm going to have like the extra fatty ribeye and that kind of a meal. Because like fat is more of like a storage type thing, where carbs is like a direct fuel, proteins for building the body, where like you're not going to really feel the effects of a low fat diet on a day-to-day basis. You're going to notice over time, then your hormones are going to drop. So I kind of like, that's where I'm at right now. And I feel like that's really, it's like where I'm enjoying experimenting with and like seeing where that goes.
Right on. Well, Josh, thank you so much for being where you're at now on the show with me. I really appreciate it. What do you have there? Is that some fresh squeezed orange juice you got?
No, this is just actually from the store.
There we go.
Fresh squeezed orange juice, oddly enough, can be way more expensive than buying the pre-bottled stuff from the store. So buying the oranges myself and slicing them and juicing them, which takes forever to make any appreciation.
Oh yeah, and you get this much out of it.
Yeah. Is actually more expensive than buying the pre-bottled, like, not fresh squeeze on the spot, but like organic fancy orange juice. The only way that it's cheaper to just do it yourself is if you're buying the in-store fresh squeezed. That's the most expensive. Right. But yes, next to my orange juice here is a Coca-Cola.
It's all the sugar right now. We're recording this in the morning.
Gummy bears.
He's got gummy bears. My kids just devoured like a whole thing of gummy bears.
But these aren't like, crap gummy bears. All the ingredients are like fruit derived and then sugar and gelatin. So
right on.
Got to keep it clean.
Yeah.